right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. I'm so glad to be back. It's been a busy few weeks. So, Tom and Tamara have held down the fort. Adam's been in there as well. So, it's been uh, sad to be missing everybody, but glad to be back. So, we're going to kick things off going through the changes that have come to the Microsoft roadmap. And so, I'm going to be nice and pass it to Tom first this week. So, Tom, talk to
Yay.
us about what's in development. Now, remember, this means what is going on behind the scenes in Microsoft, what they're working on building and developing. This is what they're working on putting out to the product. We may see changes in how they're doing it, but it's not yet ready to be released, but they're developing it. So, Tom, what's interesting out there for us?
Thank you, because if I only talked on one item, this was the item I wanted to talk about, and I didn't want
I
it to be
just
taken
knew.
away from me. And Outlook for Windows, in development, the option to start your meeting late. I'm looking at this going, huh? So much like you have an option to end your meetings early, you're now going to have the option to have the meetings you create start 10 to 15 minutes after the specified time. Once it's released, you'll be able to update it in options, calendar, the whole bit. I guess I can understand from the same logic of, well, people need time to get from point A to point B or to go to the bathroom and get back to point A, which is their kitchen table. I kind of get it, but it's like, this really seems to be pushing bad meeting behavior and codifying it and putting it in the file options. Yeah, it's going to be out there, people. Use it if you want, but I'm a little clueless as to why they're doing this one. The other one that I'll just throw in, because it happens to be just a couple items down, is in OneDrive for your iOS, you'll be able to do bookmarks for PDF viewing. So if you see a PDF out there, you'll be able to bookmark or tag it for something you want to come back to later, which I kind of get because sometimes PDFs don't necessarily render well on a small device like an iPhone or something. So you tag it until you get back to a device that's got a little bit more real estate. That sounds like a really good move.
So the starting meetings late might be okay. So, like, imagine Outlook, and you're in a scenario where you schedule a meeting and you schedule it for 5 coworkers. And Outlook comes to you and says, Tom, you have scheduled a meeting for 5 coworkers and 3 of them are back to back to back to back. Why don't you consider starting that meeting 10 minutes late to give everyone a much needed break? That might be the way that the start meetings late works. So it may actually be a good thing. So I think we should hold our judgment on that one to see.
But see, I could see it being a case, though, of where I have my meetings set to end, say a 30-minute meeting, 5 minutes early to allow you to get there, and I decide to start my minutes or meetings 10 minutes late. All of a sudden, my 30-minute meetings have 15 minutes. Condense it in, go for it. I just, I understand and I agree with your premise there. I'm just not sure it's a really good idea. I would prefer to push more the have your meetings end early so they can get to the next one instead of saying, oh, we're going to allow people to be late, because that's a frustration that people have. I called a meeting, I don't get anybody there until 5 or 10 minutes. Do I really want to say, well, my meeting's at 10, but it's really going to start at 10:10 or 10:05? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
I,
have
ima-
to see how it comes out. Go
I
ahead, Adam.
imagine it varies with culture in the workplace too,
True.
right?
True.
Like some companies may tend to be fine with people starting a little later and be more relaxed, and some may I kind of just see it as them giving options. By no means do you have to use it. I guess
Absolutely.
you could have a coworker that uses it that annoys you
Yeah.
or something. But like I think it kind of is just really just options, and especially with all of us working from home and stuff like that.
Good point.
What if you are a person that's a PM and you host meetings all the time? You decide, hey, I need to take a restroom break or something. Having that option to say, hey, we're going to start in 10 minutes, I could see being nice. And as long as that was an acceptable thing in the culture, it could be okay.
Okay, I've been duly chastised. I will sit here, be quiet, and never deal with somebody else.
Chastised. Different strokes for different folks. It's okay. It's
You
okay.
weren't chastised at all. You were just wrong, and we told you why.
No, just different opinions. Different opinions. No biggie. No
Too-
biggie. Oh man. All right. Well, I've got two that I'm going to mention that are not new at all. but are new for GCC, High, and DoD. So I think that's exciting. One of them is Microsoft Teams Together mode. So I'm excited to see that in development. People are going to be very excited about that, as well as progress bar for multiple pages for forms and quizzes in government clouds. So that's DoD, GCC, and GCC High. Working with a lot of our customers in that space, they have been asking about those two features. So excited to see that that's in development there. So with that, I'll pass it to Tamara, and she can walk us through some of her wins this week.
Sure. Microsoft Teams increasing the chat size from 300 to 1,000 participants. Currently, the 300 meeting participants can be part of a meeting chat. This feature update will allow 1,000 participants to participate in a meeting chat. So, wow. That's a lot of people trying to chat in the same stream. I think that's very ambitious, and more power to Microsoft for giving it a go. Let's see how it works out for the users. And then Microsoft Teams live event presenter for iPad. With my clients, I have a lot of people who use an iPad to participate in live events, and they don't have that option right now. So I'm glad that Microsoft is reaching out to other devices.
How about you, Adam? There's a couple of ones that seem to be right up your alley in here.
Oh, you're muted, Adam.
This one's pretty big. We've been waiting for it for a bit. So if you're in GCC, GCC High, stuff like that, both manual and automatic labeling is going to be coming out to Office apps for the government clouds. So being able to download the plugin and being able to go in and appropriate sensitivity labels onto documents, that's something that is required for a whole bunch of different compliances, whether you're doing like NIST and you need CUI data, or whether you're doing HIPAA and you need to be able to label online personal health information, stuff like that. So for the customers that are in GCC High, GCC, DoD, stuff like that, I'm sure they're all going to be really happy to see those products on the roadmap rolling out their way.
Awesome. All right. Anything else? I see one. I see Whiteboard. Whiteboard's going to be available in Microsoft Teams rooms. So that's something that's coming when Teams rooms come out. So breakout rooms there. So that's in development as well. So anyone else have anything for in development, or should we move on to rolling out?
Move on, move on, move on.
All right. Well, moving on to rolling out, I'm going to pass that one to Tamara first. She seemed excited.
All right. One thing I am really excited about is Outlook for Windows, the signature cloud setting. The signature settings are stored in the cloud, so your experience is consistent when you access Outlook for Windows on any computer, which I think is great. Otherwise, it's just you have to type in your own signature. Unfortunately, the rollout has been temporarily paused for November of 2020. So we don't have an update yet on when that will be rolling out actually. So there is a little bit of a wait there. And Outlook for iOS and Android got a lot of love. But I'll let Tom cover that.
Because Tom always
to cover
takes
Outlook.
all of those. Yeah, so I've got them all nicely grouped together here, so I could talk about them. Outlook for iOS and Outlook for Android, as Tamara alluded to, got a lot of love. A lot of things are rolling out, so you may have heard about the fact that these are coming out, but now they should actually start rolling out to your app store near you. One is recommended Office information, so the Discover feed on the search page of your Outlook for iOS is now changing to recommended, and will give you quick access to additional relevant company information based on the Microsoft Graph. So a name change, and it looks like they're going to try to give you a little bit more information than what you've been having. In Outlook for iOS, you can also set Outlook to be your default mail client with iOS and iPad OS 14. So again, if most of your use on your iPad has to do with Outlook, whatever you're doing there, you might want to look at doing that. These other ones here, let me look. Some of these are for education only. Outlook for Android and Outlook for iOS for using your voice to compose an email and using your voice to create a new calendar event. Those are rolling to Outlook Education. I don't do those kind of things in Outlook on iOS, so I don't know if I currently have them. But again, in the education targeted arena, you should now see these features coming out to you. If you're an iOS watch person, the wording of this kind of confused me. And I'm like, really? They said Outlook for iOS, watch email complication with unread email badge count. Described as, your email complication for Outlook will include an unread email badge count on your Apple Watch with watchOS 7. I'm going to guess that if you use the Apple Watch, that email complication makes sense in some way. Makes no sense to me. I don't know that complication would ever be considered a feature, but it is out there.
Complication's the little thing on the dial.
Okay.
Right. So it's going to show you a number on your Outlook of how many unread emails you have live. So you can get a count of how many emails.
Okay, I wouldn't have thought that was something called a complication or would be considered a feature, because complications are usually features. Good features aren't usually complications.
Yeah, the complications are the things on your watch face.
Yeah, really. Okay. And the final one, Outlook for iOS is going to be supporting Scribble with iPadOS 14. So this works with your Apple Pencil to use Scribble in text fields such as the body of your email, keyword search, no event scheduling. Your handwriting will be converted to text. So that's something that you use on a regular basis. Keep an eye open, because that should be rolling out to you soon in your App Store.
Awesome. One thing I see for Office 365 for, again, GCC High and DoD is the ability to have the updated office.com homepage layout. So updating the layout and navigation of office.com and the Office app in Windows 10 to improve the usability. So this is something that has already come to the other environments, and now it's coming in the GCC High and DoD space.
This is a good heads up. If you're doing documentation, you're going to have to go in and update your documentation so it matches.
Yep. You're also, let's see, organizational branding for line of business apps team catalog. So just some more branding that you can do for that there. And then is there anything else, Adam? Is there anything rolling out for you?
Not really. This is going to be like a tiny, tiny little subset of people. But if you happen to have a government F3 SKU in GCC High or DoD environment, they're basically retroactively giving you Azure Information Protection P1 as of September 1st of this year. So as of a month and 8 days ago, 7 days ago, whatever it is. All that really means is you'll have the ability to post labels, but it's just going to be baked in as part of the SKU. So again, like, I'm sure there's like, a third of a person that's watching that might have a F3 SKU in the government. But if you happen to if you happen to have that, you're getting free Azure AD P1.
That's awesome. All right, well then I guess we can move on to launched, and I'll let Tom go first. Tom, what's in launch that you're loving?
Pretty much everything is in launched are things that we've actually talked about in the past, so going into any great depth really isn't necessary. A few that I see here real quick though, Microsoft To Do, you're going to have support for sharing personal lists. So if that's something you've been wanting to do and you've been looking forward to seeing it come out, that should now be fully out. You should have the ability to do that. The other thing that I knew was coming, but I didn't know it was actually fully out, and I really need to go look at this, is for Microsoft Teams, they've simplified the notification settings. So you can go out to a single area and you can do global notifications in terms of what comes up, what pings you, what doesn't, stuff like that. And I have always found the notification feature on Teams just a little complicated and didn't really make a lot of intuitive sense to me. So I need to go back out here and take a look at that and see if it has truly been improved and you can get a finer level of granularity about what comes up and what doesn't. And
I think
stuff.
it's less annoying.
Good. Okay. Other than that, that's about it for me.
Cool. How about you, Tamara? Anything interesting? I do agree with Tom. A lot of it seems to be a lot of the same things, which basically to me says that they're trickling the launch. Because some of the things that have said launched lately, I've gone to my tenant and I'm like, I don't have this. And then it's in launched for a little bit. And I'm like, oh, now I have it. So I think it's a trickle. Anything catching your eye here?
Two things. OneDrive updates to comment notifications. So users who create Word, Excel, or PowerPoint or any other type of file that goes to OneDrive or to SharePoint will now get email notifications whenever somebody else leaves a comment on their file. So I think that's nice. You don't have to keep going back to the file to see that. And also they're moving out the large gallery view. So you'll be able to see 49 participants, and that's for GCC. So that's finally coming to GCC.
Yep, and that means GCCH and DoD are next. Another one that's coming to GCC and GCC High is the Spotlight an individual video participant for all attendees in a Teams meeting. So I think that one's a good one that's launched. Again, in that GCC and GCC High space. Until you've lived in that space, you don't know the pain of. It's not even the pain. It's the aw,
really.
the aw. I want that.
Actually, I kind of feel a little bit of that before we actually went to monthly releases, because we were on the semi-annual. I'm like, oh look, it's out, not for me. And it was really a pain that everybody's talking about. Oh look, I can do this and this. Like I won't be able to do that until July. So.
Well, how about you, Adam? Anything going on?
Yeah, there's a couple cool things. I'm going to try not to talk about all of them because there's a whole bunch of nerdy stuff in here for me. Some of it we've mentioned before. So I know I've talked about in the past about preset security policies. I kind of talked about how I thought it was a cool idea when they first mentioned it. It's launching for Exchange Online Protection and Office 365 ATP. This is basically if you don't want to go through and micromanage all your security settings, you can just say like, well, in general, I want a strict security protection on EOP, and it will go through and configure stuff for you based off of a template that they designed. I see this as a big win for small companies, especially people that maybe aren't really an IT expert that are trying to manage their companies or their groups Office 365 system. It just gives you generic best practices that you can turn on with a switch. Some of the stuff around advanced audit for the Compliance Center is now starting to roll out. We've talked about this on several of the updates. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but just know some of that's starting to hit production now. And then probably to me, the most important thing in here that I think is really cool, they are rolling out Exchange Hybrid Configuration Wizard support for a full hybrid to 2 or more tenants. This is a very niche area, but for a ton of customers that I've worked with currently at Planet, and even in my old job, you'd have either, cool, we have some customers or some users that are in GCC or GCC High, and some that are in commercial, or maybe they're in GCC and GCC High, and so ultimately they're in 2 tenants. Having to run 2 full hybrid servers was just extra money and annoyance for the people managing it. I also have worked with companies in the past that were like an oil company that bought companies like it was their job, and so every time they'd buy a new company, it would be like, well, if they want a hybrid in there, they'd have to go through and do it. And if you really knew what you're doing, you could kind of finagle a hybrid server to work with 2 different systems, but it wasn't really part of the process. Well, it's now baked into the hybrid configuration wizard, which is really cool. It's going to make it a lot easier for some people that have either growing organizations that maybe have compliance needs for part of their company, but not all of it. So they have to split what tenants they're going in. So really, really, really happy to see that. And the final thing I'll call out, they're giving you the ability to do double key encryption is now finally rolled out. The idea behind double key encryption is basically you want to control your own key. Certain compliance offerings out there recommend or suggest that you control your own key and don't give it to your vendors. And double key encryption is going to allow you to basically encrypt documents where both you and Microsoft have your own key and to use for encryption. So you get to control it yourself, which again, some compliance things want you to do. Before this, Microsoft had kind of answered these compliance needs through customer key, which was like, you basically put a lock on your system and had to like approve Microsoft resources to get into it, which whether that really met the compliance standard or not is kind of hard to say. But this actually will, which is nice.
Awesome. Anyone else have anything else for launched?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, then we'll close out with one and canceled, and it's Microsoft Teams wirelessly cast to Teams devices. And this is when you could be wirelessly cast to any Teams room, collaboration bar, or Surface Hub, enabling a seamless ad hoc in-person collaboration for people in a shared space. No worries about it really being canceled. It's actually being broken into 2 different roadmap items. So that likely means that it was in development and they realized, hey, we can do half of it at this pace and the other half at this pace. So let's break it up into 2 items. So not going away, just being done differently, which we often see. So don't have to worry about it there. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see. So. But those are our updates for this week. Pretty short and simple to the point, but I love it. And the team minus me will be back next week because
no,
I'm going to vacation and I'm going to be thinking about everything but technology next week. hopefully. So we'll see, but the rest of the team will be here next week to give updates, and then I'll be back the following week. So thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.